Thank you for listening to this sermon from Valley Life Church. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to our website at valleylife.church, or better yet, come be our guest on a Sunday morning.
It's really good to be with you after Vacation Bible School. Like Daniel said, we had 222 kids registered, 67 volunteers, around 290 people up here throughout the week. What a great time. And then we follow that up with the Upside Down Family sermon, the topic of which is discipline and correction. And I promise not to use what I saw from your kids all week long against you today. When I was a little kid, little bitty enough that my finger fit inside of a staple. My mom was working in an office, and I remember she took me up there, and I thought, oh, wow, she's got this desk and all these cool things, pencil sharpener and what have you. And I like the staple remover. If you remember the staple remover, it looks like claws, and I was doing the claws, and that's pretty cool. And then I got out the stapler, and I pulled the staples out of the stapler. It's got that row of staples. I put it around my finger, and it fit. So I don't know how old that was, but little bitty kid, I guess, maybe 4 or something like that, and it fit around my finger. And I thought, how cool would it be if I could staple around my finger, and it would close beneath, and I would have a staple wrap. I don't know why. Like, why does a kid think this kind of stuff? So I put my finger in the stapler, I took a deep breath, and I hit it. And, of course, my finger mashed and spread out like that. And the staples went through both sides of my finger, and it just started spurting blood. No one had to be angry with me, frustrated with me. No one needed to yell at me or discipline me. Consequences taught me to never do that again. And I never have. I was a quick learner. I never did that again. When kids are infants, they're just growing up. Then I don't know, I'm going to make up my ages here. Kids mature at different rates. 2 to, 8, 7, 8, 6, I don't know. 2 to some odd. You have to make consequences happen in their lives. I mean, they staple their finger. They're not going to do that again. But when they say no and throw their toy, well, no one is going to make a consequence happen. That's a parental responsibility. Consequences need to happen after, no, I'm peeing right here on this couch. But that's 2 to 8. And then after that, I don't know, again, preteen years on through like early teen years. What I found to be a challenge, I've raised 2 kids, now we're working on the grandkids. What I found to be a challenge, is, and some of y'all will relate with this, stepping out of the way of the consequence. That's a big challenge. Because the kid does something like they staple their fingers sort of at school in the way they talk to their teacher or on the baseball team or just at home. They can't see the reason why I need to not have so much screen time. And the parent seems like they are themselves the consequence. And the parent knows, no, I'm trying to let the consequence happen to you, but it sort of comes through me. And I found to be a great challenge getting Bailey and Britton to understand I'm just trying to get out of the way of the consequence. And the better you can do that and be creative, mom and dad, you're trying to be creative and get them to see, yes, it's sort of coming through me, but this is just life happening to you. It's just life happening to you, like a staple through the finger. And it's really difficult to do. I sympathize with you about it. And then late teen years, on through adulthood, you're just sympathizing with them about the consequences. That's when it gets way easier. The problems are more difficult, but it becomes so obvious that it's got nothing to do with me that you didn't make your car payment, and now they've come to get it, and I can just go, oh man, that sucks for you. The big challenge through there is having the resolve as a parent when they're little bitty to be the deliverer of consequence, because you know you've just made it up. You just no consequence was going to happen. You just made it up. Then that preteen through that period where you're trying to convince them, yeah, it came through me, but I'm just the deliverer of the news. This is going to be the rest of your life. Consequences happen. So that's what we're talking about today. And I said all that just to say I know that this changes over time. And I don't know what stage of parenting you're in. After the first service, a lady who's already raised her kids, already in the grandparent years, she came to me in tears saying, thank you for telling the truth to our young people. But also, I want you to know, she said, that this is landing on us older folks too, because we're hearing how God treats us, how God loves us. Everybody's parented or has been parented by someone. So this parenting sermon, Upside Down Family sermon, it is for all of us. So here's the big idea. This thing, I'm calling it upside down parenting. You call it kingdom parenting, Christian parenting, whatever. It is about preparing a heart for the mercy of God through Christ. Christ is the one that died on the cross for us and gives us his mercy. We have God's rules, we sin against God's rules, and then mercy. But if nothing in someone's thought process is acknowledging sin and consequence, then mercy is emptied of power. Amen. Thank you. I knew it was coming if I waited. God made the laws. Mankind violated the laws. Judgment must happen. Justice must happen. It has to happen. And the early years, those preteen years, and then later adolescence on through adulthood shows consequences happen. Judgment happens. And if there's ever going to be mercy, it must be in the context of judgment was due. That's part of what parenting is. So here's how I approached it. I'm going to reminisce back however many years ago that was when I had my little ones, and I'm at the same time preaching sermons about parenting and trying to execute those sermons in my house. When it comes to correction, discipline, reproof, rebuke, chastisement, whatever you want to call it, paddling, spanking, grounding, all those things. Here was my thought. Can I get my kid out of the road? When they're in the road and some metaphorical car is oncoming, can I say, come here? Can I get my kid to obey my voice? That's one thought. I wanted that. And does my child understand justice so that there is some need for grace? Those are the two things I hope that you can think about when they're little, especially. Can I say to my kid, hey, come here, and they come here? Or do I have to repeat myself? Do I have to do the countdown? Do we have to threaten grounding? Do we have to call Santa Claus and say, you're not getting toys this year? And there's sometimes, and I knew it intuitively as a young parent, there's going to be some times in my life when maybe literally some oncoming car and my kid is in the road and I don't want to debate. We're not having a discussion. Come here, and I need to get you out of danger. Can I get that done? And secondly, when you don't do what has been required and commanded, demanded, instructed, can the child recognize from their perspective, I'm due justice? Something negative, painful should happen to me. I might receive mercy, but I'm supposed to get justice. Can I get that idea through their head? Those are the two things that I hope that you're thinking about as we go through here and think about upside down family. And we're all going to talk about spanking. I promised y'all that we would. And my goal is not to convince you to spank your children. That is not my goal. My goal is that you will require obedience from your child, that you'll require it. And God has given us spanking, paddling, swatting as a tool for those little kids. You can't spank a teenager. You'll just end up in a fight. And you might lose if they've gotten big. But when they're little, God has given us this tool and told us over and over and over and over and over in Scripture that when you're delivering made-up consequences, because no outside consequences are really going to happen, the parent has to make them up, that the SWAT does a good job of it. And we'll talk about that as we go through here. And maybe, I want to recognize, maybe you don't have that tool in your tool bag. There's real good reasons you may not have that tool at your disposal. Maybe child's history might necessitate you saying that's probably not a tool I get. Or like you have foster kids, foster system won't allow you to do that. And there are other reasons as well. But just know that you can't have a conversation with a toddler. There's an age at which you just can't have a conversation like you have one with your buddy, and you're going to have to deliver some consequences. All right, a rehearsal, a little bit of rehash, some stuff y'all have heard before maybe if you've been here, but Proverbs chapter 6, verse 20 is our rubric for understanding upside-down parenting. And the first idea was authority out of chapter 6, verse 20. I hope that you can take chapter 6, verse 20 through 23 and use it as parenting, use it as grandparenting. It's so good. It says, my son, keep your father's commandment, forsake not your mother's teaching. And from that, we got that one big idea, authority. God has given the parent authority. Our authority does not come from the fact that we know more and we're bigger and we're always right. No, it comes from the fact that God has given us this authority. We're supposed to deliver commands. We're supposed to issue teachings. The fundamental nature of the relationship between a child, even a child or a child, and a parent is that of teacher to student. And we've said before, the fundamental relationship between spouse and spouse is friend. Spouses are friends, parents and kids are teacher-student. But for some reason, everybody rewires those and wants to be friend to their kid and teacher to their spouse. And that don't work, and neither does that. When you are in authority, you get to erect the walls and say, this is our family. Over there is not our family. I'm not in a charge of that over there. But inside here, this is our family. These are the walls, and may these walls be dripping with love. You get to set the context as the parent. Use your authority to set that context, an extremely loving context. Walls dripping with love. Secondly, we talked about heart in week number 2, in verse 21. Bind them on your heart always. Tie them around your neck. And the takeaway I hope you get with that one is head and hands will always lose to heart. You can force them to do what you say. You can command it and physically push them around and get them to do with their hands what you want. You can teach them so that they remember and check them and everything. But if you're not getting to their heart, it'll all come unwound eventually. Go for that heart. And I haven't said it yet. I want to say it now. It's an art. It's the art of the heart. It's certainly not a science. Somebody after the first service came up and asked me a very specific question about when it's dark. The young man actually doesn't have kids yet, but he's just forecasting. I'm not even married yet, but when I do have a kid, how would you know when it's dark in their room and they're scared of the dark, something goes bump in the night, monster under the bed, and they come out and say, I'm scared? How do you know if they're really scared or if they're just playing you for a fool? How do you know? Last night I couldn't sleep. I closed my eyes and I had those squigglies, like when you close your eyes, you see all those colors and squigglies going around. And for some reason last night, my eyes just started watching them, chasing them. And every time I closed my eyes, I would chase them and watch them. And I stayed up all night doing that. And I thought to myself, if I were 6 years old, how could I explain that to my dad? There's no way I could communicate that. I would just say, I can't sleep. And he would say, I know what you're doing, get back in bed. And it's an art. And that's what I told that young man in our church. It's an art. You have to be the expert at it. No one's coming to save you, and there is no rule book in your Bible about how that stuff works. It's the art of the heart. Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. If you can get to that spring of life in your 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, if you can start getting to the source, that's so much better than head and hands. Because hearts are always aiming. Hearts are always crowning kings, and hearts are never, ever neutral. I'm begging you. Pastors sometimes beg and plead, and I'll do that. I ain't afraid. I beg you, for you as mama and you as daddy, take responsibility and own it. Go ahead and tell your friends, tell your spouse, tell your kids, I'm taking responsibility for getting to your heart. If I'm missing that mark, help a brother out. Show me the way to that heart. I don't just want you to do what I say begrudgingly. I want to get in there. I want you to partner with me to get this thing done. Amen. Oh, amen myself today. That's fine. Use your time, use your words, use your affection to delight in your child. Get to that heart. Number 3, communication is verse 22. When you walk, they will lead you. When he says they, he's referring to the commandments and the teachings. Those commands and teachings from your authority, they will lead you. When you lay down, they will watch over you. When you wake, they will talk with you. That talking, that communication, it's constant communication. And you may remember what I say about communication with your kid. If you can get to that heart and put in that wellspring of life, this drop in there, you can tell me anything. I don't know if you can get that done or not. Let's be honest, some people are better at it than others. Some families are more communicative than others. But what you're aiming at, if you're going to have an upside-down family, is, son, you can tell me anything. You don't have to be ashamed of talking to your dad. You don't have to be ashamed to tell your mama what happened up there that you're not proud of, that maybe the other kids know about and they're posting on social media. You can tell me. You can tell me. And you don't have to only tell me things that I am going to be proud of. I can handle it. I'm not so emotionally fragile that you have to shield me. But whatever you do, you don't have to lie. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me, I won't lie to you, because lies are poison. Lies are poison. Lies are relationship poison. Lies are relationship poison. Once I don't trust you and you don't trust me, what are we going to do? I remember saying that to the kids. Son, I don't know when you're lying. I know some parents like to think that they know when their kids lie. You do not know when they're lying to you. Think back to how well you lied to your parents. They're probably better at that than you were. And I told Bailey, hey, I don't know when you lie. But if you lie to me, what are we going to do? Like, how will we do this thing that we're trying to do if lies get in here? Never lie to your kids. Teach them that lies are poison. And what we'll do next is what you came for, the correction. But before we do that, nothing we talk about in the correction segment of this sermon can overcome a parent's bad habits, bad attitudes, and lack of self-control that creates static in the house. I actually asked the first service what to call it, and somebody said, I think you called it static, and that was a good word for it. And I don't know how to say the static that I mean. But we can talk about correction. We can talk about paddling and ground. We talk about all that stuff. But if there is static in your house, nothing we talk about can overcome that. I promise you, if you will find the static and capture it and get rid of it, any parenting strategy will work a lot better. When I say static, I'm going to have to act it out. And here it goes, my acting debut at Valley Life. A parent who says, ta-da, I did it. Thank you. A parent who says, eye rolling, exasperation, I'm sick of this. Why do you guys act this way? It's just static. And we've talked before about cursing at your kids. We've talked before about raising your voice and yelling at your kids. That's out. Yelling is out. But this static, you're just in my way. Move. God. Jeez. These kids. That's static. And it will distort whatever else you're trying to get done. Own it. Apologize for it. Get rid of it. You'll exasperate your children if you try to correct them in a context of static. Because everything sounds like noise. He's I don't know. He's in a bad mood. I don't know, my mom, I don't want that for you. I want you to get rid of it. I want to give you a vision for it just not being there. And then everything works so much better. And then everything will be perfect and you'll have no problems. Just kidding. It's just going to be a lot easier if you can get rid of that. Now correction. And the correction verse in Proverbs chapter 6 goes like this. For the commandment is a lamp. Remember, only bad things grow in the dark. So we put light on things. We talk about things. The commandment is a lamp, the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life. You want it to be the way of life in your house. You know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. This is not a contest between me and you. This is not a contest between did Dad have a good day at work or a bad day at work, because that's the real determining factor. No. This is transactional, like stapled through the finger. It's going to happen every time. If you do it 3 times, it'll happen 3 times. If you're in a good mood, a bad mood, it's just going to happen. You want correction to feel transactional. So here's my points. Number 1, 4 points. Children, obey your parents. This is the baseline. The baseline comes from Ephesians. It's chapter 6, verse 1. It says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. It's just right and good. It's just the way it's supposed to be. When Dad says, hey, I want you to stay on this carpet for a little while. I need you to be here. And the kid stays on the carpet. Now, assess your family. Can the child stay on the carpet? Will they do what you say? Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is just right. In fact, it goes on and says it's one of the 10 commandments. In verse 2, honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. Of the 10 commandments, it's the first one that comes with a promise. Well, what is the promise? That's verse 3. That it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. There's 2 good things that will happen if you can raise a kid who does what you say. You require obedience from the child. You issue those light-giving commands, that lamp of teaching, and you make them do what you say. And if you love your kid enough to make them do what you say, good things happen, that you may live long and that it may go well with you. It's a promise that comes with this command. But if you hate your child, if you're annoyed with your child, if you want their life to go tough, don't require them to do what you say. I would like to convince you that there is as much nobility, I like that word noble, there's a lot of nobility in making your child do what you say, as there is in fending off an invader from your home. You think you're a big tough guy? Many of you are big tough guys. I do not want to offend. Big tough guy, defend your home, make sure the door is locked, you got your security system, I'm strapped when I need to be. Okay, that's great. There's as much nobility in requiring obedience from a 4-year-old as there is in defending your home. Or walking your daughter down the aisle. Some of you can imagine what it would be like. You got the whole family, God is watching, the witnesses are watching, the preacher's waiting, and you walk that girl down the aisle and your chest is stuck all out because that's a big moment. It is a big moment. And so is telling your kid, you must do what I say. And then there's fathers. When you get that done, you must not use exasperating methods. That's verse 4 of this chapter. It says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So whatever tools you have at your disposal, you must not use the tools that provoke kids to anger. There's a lot that'll just tick them off. The old King James Version and the New King James Version, both, they say, do not exasperate your children. And that's what I'll call it because I like that word a lot. How do you know? That's what the young man asked me after the first service. How do you know if the child needs to be put back in bed, needs a drink of water, is scared of something, goes bump in the night, or just has FOMO and wants to see if mom and dad's playing Scrabble or not? How do you know? Well, whatever you're going to do with it, do not exasperate your children. This is your real life. Whatever you're going to do, you are not permitted to exasperate them. You got to get creative. And the way that your dad did it may have worked really well with you, and it may not be the way it's going to work with your kid. Now, children, you got to obey your parents, but that doesn't mean parents can do whatever they want. You must not exasperate your kid. You mustn't. I've said to Britton many times, my son is now in his mid-20s, married man, but I've said to Britt, if I would have raised you the way my dad raised me, we would never speak again. And I started down that direction. It worked real good for me. I totally understood what Dad was doing, and it worked. And I started with Britt, and it just wasn't going to work. I could tell this won't work. And he must obey me. That's 6:1, Ephesians 6:1. But I've got to be the one that changes, Ephesians 6:4, because this method is exasperating him. Amen. Number 3, delight in your children, that they will be a delight. The method, part of the method is to delight in them. Delight in this. This comes from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 11. And it says, my son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. Discipline, reproof, paddling, spank, all that's the same kind of stuff. Here's why. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves. God loves you. He loves you. He's all over you. He doesn't let you get out of line. Why? Because he loves you. And he says, as a father, the son in whom he delights. Do you delight in your daughter? Do you delight in your son? Maybe I shouldn't take it for granted that you do. Maybe we should allow some wiggle room for the idea that maybe you're chronically annoyed with your kids. Or you're annoyed by the fact that it takes perpetual diligence to require obedience. It is annoying. It's annoying. And when you get annoyed, I would encourage you to go back and delight in your child. You delight in them by correcting them. Parenting is pervasive. It's true. But I want you to imagine a guy with a sweet collector car. I don't know what a sweet collector car is, but there are some, and some of you guys have them. And you delight in correcting it. Every minor flaw. Get that buffed out. Don't slam that door. You're not drinking orange juice in my whatever. I had one new car, but it's a side story. I had one new car one time. First time I got it home, Britton got in there with a big thing of orange juice and spilled it on the floor. I had no new car now. Never have a new car again. But you want to correct it. You want to restore it. You don't get mad at it. You fix it. Delight in your children by correcting them. And discipline, number 4, discipline. So how do I do it? Well, discipline like the Lord does. Correct like the Lord does. Rebuke. Reproof, chastise. You like that one? chastise. It's coming up in this verse. Hebrews chapter 12 tells us how to discipline like the Lord. It goes like this. Have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? So it's good news. Hey, you are going to be treated like the sons. I know there's women in here, but this is the good news of going, yeah, but the sons get the inheritance. He's going to treat us all as sons. It's very good news. And have you forgot that exhortation, that encouragement that says he's going to treat you like his sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, or be weary when reproved by him. Why? For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. Does the Lord receive you? Well, if he received you, if he saved you, if he brought you into his kingdom from darkness and into light, he will discipline you. And the other word he uses is chastise. I had to look it up in the Greek word, and I can't say it. It's a complicated word I don't know how to pronounce. But the definition is to flog, to chastise, to punish, specifically to whip or to flog. And it says the more general meaning of the term refers to disciplinary pain that is inflicted by fathers on their children or by God on his people. It's a whooping. It's a paddling. I'm from the South. We say whooping. Verse 7, it says, it's for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. And then this rhetorical question, for what son is there whom his father does not discipline? What is a father-son relationship where there is no discipline? What is a parent-to-child relationship where there's no discipline? We've already heard what it is. It's when you hate your kid. I like saying this because it's been true now for 10 years. I've been saying the same thing. If you Google a father who hates his son and you see what the stories are, there are stories, and they're horrible, about fathers who hate their kids. If you keep scrolling down, you'll eventually find the verse that says, a father who hates his son does not discipline him. Verse 11 of Hebrews says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but it later yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. It's painful, not pleasant, but it yields the fruit of peace later, if you'll do it. Now, I know that people deny discipline and say it's not the way to go. And I wanted to get a smattering of opinions of people who have written about it's not good to discipline with punishment. And that's called punitive discipline. Here's from an article that says, punitive discipline is a parenting mistake. And research has shown it doesn't work. Oh, research has shown? Wow, the research is always right. We should always trust the science. I know that we should. I've heard that. See Discipline That Works, which is a book. You can Google it if you want to. I do not recommend. See Discipline That Works for a sampling of such research. Punitive discipline does not work. Punitive discipline does not work. And it makes me ask the question that I hope you're asking yourself right now. What do you mean by work? I think that we're doing two different things. When I'm trying to raise a kingdom citizen whose heart is prepared to receive the mercy of God, and you're trying to raise a kid in a secular worldview, I say to this author, I just think we're doing different things. And it wouldn't be smart for you to tell me what works. You're playing a different game than I'm playing. We're both raising kids. I know it looks the same, but I'm doing something totally different, man. Now I have just a few minutes left, so I'm about to start talking fast. You better listen fast. 9 quick thoughts on chastisement, flogging your child, turning them over your knee. I think that this is a lost art, like starting a fire with sticks. I don't blame you for not knowing how to do it. I don't think people talk about it. I may get in trouble for talking about it, but here we go. Number one, you want to communicate, I'm on your side. I am totally on your side. I am not on your level. You got to get that done. I'm on your side. I'm not on your level. We're at different levels here, and you can get on board with what we're trying to do here. Number 2, address every disobedience, which is why it's pervasive. Address every disobedience to clearly given instructions. When they're annoying, when they say a joke 4 times and you have to teach them it's not funny the second, third, and fourth time, that's not a time for discipline. But when you give specific instructions and they clearly rebel because they have rebellion in their heart, address that obedience. It's not as though every disobedience needs punishment or chastisement or any of that, but it must be addressed. It can't just be let go because that isn't real life. That's not how God treats his sons, and you must not treat your sons that way. You win decisively every confrontation of the will so that they will know who's in authority. It must be painful, not pleasant, and it will later yield the fruit of peace. Number 3, require an explanation or an answer to every disobedience. Not every disobedience needs discipline, but it needs some sort of an acknowledgement or response. And later they can get to the place when they're old enough to use the language of repentance. But at first they got to say, I'm not supposed to do that. Number 4, I encourage you. This is not from the Bible. I'm going to encourage you as your pastor. Maybe just listen to me because I'm an older guy. Correction is better done right now than later. Just do it right now. Which child is happier? The child that gets corrected right now, he gets a SWAT, he gets to play PlayStation as soon as possible, or he has to sit there and listen to you say, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. You guys are so mean to each other. Why are you like that? Honey, please put the iPad away so mommy can help you get ready. You're hurting mommy's feelings. If you don't obey, Santa will not be bringing you presents this year. I'm telling you, just correct them. Just correct them right now and get your family back to normal as soon as possible. And correct them without bargaining. Discipline, paddle, chastise, all that, without bargaining. Can you imagine the emotional and spiritual impact that happens on a 9-year-old when they start to realize the truth that they can bargain their way out of consequences? And then how do you apply that to the Lord? If I see God the way I see my parents, and that's the way it is, and then I go to the Lord, does it feel like if I pray more, I'll get him to do stuff? If I can just cajole him into doing what I want? Don't teach your kids that. Don't allow them to bargain their way out. And without emotion. I don't know if you've taught this or been taught this or not, but let me tell you, this is a punishment is transactional because the relationship is not on the line. You're not hurting daddy's feelings. This is what happens, like a stapler through the finger. Our relationship is not on the line. You're not exasperating me. This is just what needs to happen. It's got nothing to do with my patience. It's got nothing to do with whether there was traffic or not. This is just what happens. James told us, know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. I know some of you imagine like, well, to spank, you'd have to be so mad that you're ready to... No. Get that out of your mind. If you're so mad, then you need to not do anything. One young man said, I don't have kids yet, but I can't imagine spanking a child because I don't know if I would know how to stop. And I said, if you're feeling that way, you shouldn't even talk to a child. You need self-control, my brother. Number 7, spanking should be done in order to break their will. Some of you have not confronted that idea in your mind. You're going to have to violate a 5-year-old's will. He wants to do something he must not do, and you're going to make him not do that thing. You violate their will. But if you exasperate a child, it breaks their spirit. And you don't want to break the spirit. You want it to be ritualistic. They know what's going to happen. They know the extent. They know what's coming. And it's exactly as they thought it was going to be. It wasn't pleasant. It was painful. And later it yields the fruit of peace. Number 8, you comfort that child. You comfort that child way more intensely than the spanking was delivered or whatever punishment was delivered. You go get that child. You use your emotions to get involved in that comforting process. The way I want you to imagine it is, I grab little Britt, I put him over my knee, give him his swats. I swat him hard enough that he needs to cry. If I'm just swatting him and he doesn't have some reaction to it, then I'm just hitting at that point. That's like getting something off my chest. That's not what we're doing here. This is a ritual. You know what's going to happen. It's painful, not pleasant, and Daddy's right here. We talk about it. I wrap you up, and I want to get you back to playing as soon as possible. Let's move on with the family. There doesn't need to be a cooling off time. Why? Because God is like that. God doesn't take a week to cool off when you blow it, and he just disciplines you, and you come back. You don't need to stay out of church for a while and let the Lord cool down. He picks up right where he left off with you. Hey, you're back. We're good. Son, we're good. I spanked Bailey in too. Bailey, we're good. We're fine. I was fine the whole time, in fact. You pick up right, that's number 9. You pick up right where you left off in the relationship without apology. I don't apologize for spanking you. It's going to happen again. If you ever do the stapler again, it's going to bleed. If you violate this rule, it's going to happen. If you pull a coffee pot off on your head, you're going to get wet. I mean, this is what happens. Somebody said, and I wrote, I've had this for a long time. It's from an article in the on the website called Salon. I saved it because it's been important to me for a long time. And they said this: spanking is a failure. That's what corporal punishment is. It's failure. It's a complete breakdown of communication between parent and child. Children are unpredictable, reckless, and occasionally violent. They can drive otherwise rational humans into fits of rage. And I've had moments, many moments certainly, where I have felt that rage after exhausting every last possible idea to get them to behave. Bribery, timeouts, the silent treatment. I remember thinking, the silent treatment? Okay. Walking away, in parentheses, he wrote, they follow you. Distraction, throwing kids outside. They end up ringing the doorbell a lot. That's all so exasperating. I couldn't get through this little article. He says, you name it. So I tried corporal punishment as a final resort, a desperate last stab at closure. Spanking the kid did nothing for me. I thought, you thought you were doing something for yourself? Bro, we're doing different things. Whatever you just described, do not call that what I'm teaching my church. He said, it only made me realize what a blanking failure I was. I would probably agree with that part. Discipline your child so their hearts can receive the grace of God through the sacrifice of Jesus. Hebrews tells us he disciplines those he loves. And he goes on to say, if you are without discipline, you're not in the family of God. Jesus died on a cross because there's real punishment for sins. And there can be mercy where there's punishment that produces the possibility of mercy. If someone can absorb all the wrath of God, if someone will absorb all the punishment of God, then the offender can go free, and that is the gospel. Your kid will be much more ready to receive that if they understand justice, if they understand consequence, and you will show them the mercy of God.
Hi, it's Pastor Brian, and I hope this sermon is helping you become good, glad, and strong in your faith. But remember, there's just nothing like being a part of your own local church. So if you're in the North Phoenix area, you should join us this Sunday. And if you do, make sure you find me and say hello. And if you're not in North Phoenix, our team would consider it a real honor to help get you connected to a church near you. Just email us at hello@valleylife.church, and we'll do our very best to help you out. Now, you can always find more podcasts, community groups, service opportunities, and even a giving link on our app and on our website. Press on.